This is Grace Kaleche Wata. A year ago, she had no idea how to wear a niqab, the veil across the face that is worn with a hijab in Saudi Arabia. However, it was a skill she had to master during her very first days there. A prerequisite set by her employer well before she even left Kenya. That she can now freely walk without having to wear it is something she no longer takes for granted. Only getting here has not been easy. Grace had been promised an instant shift from her poverty-ridden life with a job in which she would earn 800 riyals a month, about 18,000 Kenya shillings. At first, her recruiting agent had told her that she would be traveling to Dubai. Grace jumped at the opportunity. She would later learn that this was just the first in a series of lies meant to get her to sign the contract.
Hatu kuongelea mambo ati ni Saudia, nikaambia tayari nilikuwa kuna clue Saudia watu wanateswa. Nikaambia unaweza nifanyia bidii unitafutie Dubai. Hasa nilivyoanza process nikienda akaniambia sisi ofisi yetu hatupeleki watu Dubai, tunapeleka watu Saudi Arabia.
Once the contract was signed, Abdul Salam's bait and switch was clear. He was apparently aware of the bad reputation Saudi Arabia had earned among economic migrants and had to resort to trickery to get Grace to go there. When she insisted she did not want to, he threatened to have her pay back all the money he had allegedly spent to secure her a job. That was not an option for Grace, who comes from a poor family, her mother running a small eatery at the back of her house. Grace signed a 2-year contract that stated that she would be working for a man called Abdulaziz Babtan. The contract stipulated, among other things, that Abdulaziz had the right to deport her if he felt she did not understand the duties assigned to her or delayed in those duties, and this without compensation or prior notice. Interestingly, however, nowhere in the contract did it indicate what rights Grace had in a case of mistreatment or breach of contract by the employer. All the same, a desperate Grace packed her bags and left for Saudi Arabia in May 2011 with a copy of the contract for her employer to sign. On getting to Riyadh, the capital city of Saudi Arabia, she was taken to a room with many other Kenyans also waiting to be picked up by the employers. Her passport was confiscated.
Sasa nilikuja nikachukuliwa na kijana wa 16 years. Nikaambiwa huyu ndio boss wangu. Nikamuuliza wewe ndio Abdulaziz? Akaniambia eh. Sasa mimi nilipofika nyumbani nilikuja kufind out ile visa ilichukuliwa yule kijana wa 16 years. Yeye ndio ni kama alinileta kwao.
When they got home, Grace already knew that she would have it rough. Her agent and her contract stated that she was to work in only one household, but that was not to be. She was to work in a 6-storied house, that and their relatives' houses, treating her like their slave from the word go.
Sasa unajua mimi nilifika siku angalia kila kitu katika room. Nikaenda juu nikapata kitanda yangu ni 3-ply. Imetengenezwa kama bed, alafu imekuwa 3-ply juu na blanket na 1 pillow.
And with that, Grace decided she could not stay there another second, decided to run away.
Nikachukua bubu yangu, nikachukua kuna nini nyingine hapo walinipatia inaitwa jalbab. Nikachukua hiyo, nikateremsha kwanza chini na mkoba nyingine nilikuwa niko nao nikaweka hapo karibu na gate, main gate. Nikarudia suitcase yangu. Kenda nikachukua nikaweka pale. Sasa nikavaa ile buibui, nikavaa jalbab. Sasa nikasema vile nimevaa jalbab inaonesha sura yangu. Obviously nikitoka nje naweza shikwa na polisi ama nini. Ule msichana alikuwa ameniambia kuna wazee wanaitwa mtawa. Wako na madevu na nini, wale wanashika watu. Wakupeleke polisi, alafu wakupeleke deportation hapo jela.
Getting to the Kenyan embassy was no easy task given the rules in Saudi Arabia restricting movement for any unmarried woman. Her employer, who soon realized that she had made her way to the embassy, claimed that she owed them some 30,000 shillings, which she had to pay if she was to be allowed to leave the country. And here she would quickly learn that her supposed agent was not who he had masqueraded himself to be.
Akaniambia uko na deni, utalipa pesa. Nikamwambia kama unataka pesa, tisha kwa agent.
Back at home, not knowing what was unfolding in Saudi Arabia, Grace's mother was trying everything she could to get the agent to intervene and have her daughter brought back home. Grace did eventually get back home, but after having to pay the 30,000 shillings she apparently owed.
Mpaka nikauza mbuzi zangu nyumbani. Ndiuza. Arudi.
The mother still filled with regret for having encouraged her daughter to go to Saudi Arabia.
Najuta tena sana. Najuta. Hata umwambia Mungu nisamehe. Manake vile nilikuwa nafikiria sivyo ilikuwa.
We trace Abdul Salam agency offices in Mombasa, seemingly a busy office. Inside we find many more wanting to travel. Only he would not speak to us, instead referring us to another agent who he claims is in charge of all the other agencies in Mombasa.
But are you aware that so many complaints about your agency? People you're taking?
I know Shanela. I know the issue about Shanela. I know what's
So what's wrong?
No. Just talk to them. They come to me. Talk to them.
But does Kapea handle the people you take?
Even the issue of Shanela, it's no problem. When you finish with them, come to me.
The Ashanella he speaks of recently came back into the country. She too speaks of how she was tricked by Abdul Salam, convincing her to leave for Saudi Arabia and then leaving her for dead when she desperately needed to come back home after being mistreated by her employer.
Alikuwa anadai 30,940 ambapo alikuwa anasema amenisimamia medical. Akisa yule bosi wangu kule nenda jua kuwa ni urongo sababu bosi wangu ndo alisema alinisimamia kila kitu.
Lakini kitu kimekuja kunishangaza baada ya kwamba Asha amekuja, nampigia simu nimwambie Asha amekuja. Hata kabla sijaongea Aisha ni wewe tupe time, mambo yako tunashughulikia, atakuja. Mimi nitakwambia amekuja, wao wananiambia niwape time washughulikie, atakuja. Na kama mimi nilikuwa nakwambia amekuja tayari, ndio kashtuka.
In theory and in fact on the contracts they sign, these domestic workers are free to come back home anytime they feel the deal they signed up for has gone sour. In practice, however, leaving Saudi Arabia is almost impossible. One, the employers hold on to their passports, and two, the contracts apply only in part when it favors the employer or the agents.
Muhuri, a Muslim human rights organization, has on record some 180 cases of people complaining about abuse and neglect from their agents.
For the agencies, every person they send to Saudi Arabia, they get up to 400,000 shillings per person. So the motivation has always been money.
This list obtained from Muhuri's offices is a compilation of over 40 agencies operating in Mombasa alone.
From the 40, it's about 10% only that are registered, that are working in accordance to the law. There is the labor laws, and clearly it stipulates how these agents are supposed to work. There are those who operate from their homes, from their bedrooms. They keep the files with themselves.
Of these agencies, only 3 are reportedly recognized by the Saudi Arabia government as legit, having been facilitated with an Injaz number. Without this number, it is impossible to take people to Saudi Arabia. With these stringent requirements, the agents have resorted to working as brokers for the registered ones, always on the ground hunting for these girls from the villages.
Now for these brokers, anyone who sends someone willing to travel to the agency, they get around 10 to 15,000.
Ashraf Mohammed still holds on to her travel documents, that and a 30,000 shillings receipt from Al Saleh travel and recruiting agencies. It's a fee she had to pay for her to come back home. Only all along the agent who recruited her was one by the name Fabra. The idea to travel to Saudi Arabia was sold to her by one of Fabra's sub-agents in Malindi. She, like Grace and Aisha, was made to believe that Fabra was the one facilitating her travel to Saudi Arabia.
Sasa mimi nikifika kule nilikuwa sina connection na yeye Fabra kabisa, kwa sababu connection ilikuwa ni ule mzee. Wewe tusafirisha yeye Fabra, yani ni mrongo, yeye watu tukua hapa kisha watuuza kwa ule mzee Nairobi. Yeye asafirishi mtu.
Fabra was operating as a broker for Al Saleh. Al Saleh now are demanding that Ashraf pay some 150,000 shillings before her travel is facilitated.
Mimi nikataka ule nikamwambia kwenye karatasi simuliandika kwenye karatasi kama nimekata mimi mwenyewe kazi. Kama Mwarabu amenitesa naweza kuja kurudishwa. Kama ninakata mimi mwenyewe kazi kiujauri nilipe 60,000 ndo nirudi. Na mimi sijakataa kazi kiujauri, wao wenyewe ndo wamenitesa. Na contract ilikuwa ni mimi na huu Mwarabu. Leo contract mimi na yeye imeharibika, sinafahamu nirudi zangu Kenya ama kuna sheria mimi niuze kwa tajiri mwingine. Akanambia hiyo sheria hiyo waijua wewe, mimi nafuata sheria yangu mimi mwenyewe.
They agreed on the 60,000 shillings, but Ashraf's mother said she would only pay 30,000 shillings first and pay the rest after Ashraf gets home. Fabra, who operates her bureau in an exhibition shop at one of the shopping malls near Tarbush Hotel in Mombasa, denies all these allegations, claiming that Ashraf was only out to tarnish her name.
Wanasema agenti wanafanya makosa na ndio hawa maagent wanasaidia hawa wasichana kutoka kwa ushirati, kutoka kwa mateso, kutoka kwa shida. Manake wengi sana 18 years old amezalishwa. Yule mwanamume hana haja naye, atafanya nini? Na ametoka katika the poorest family. Ule mtu atakufa na njaa, serikali itakuja kumlisha.
Fabra insists, contrary to Ashraf's allegations, that she was in contact with her all throughout her 7-day stay in Saudi Arabia, but admits that she sent her there through another agency.
Yeye ana agent yake, mimi sina in number. Ushaelewa? Na lugha ya Kiarabu sijui.
So when kupata tu wasichana alafu
napata wasichana na nafanyia kila kitu hapa, nikishamaliza nachukua dokumenti zangu napeleka Nairobi.
In the final part of this series, we tell you how the Kenyan government appears to have taken a backseat in this matter, and an embassy that does very little to protect its citizens abroad. Esther Kahumbi, KTN Prime.